Welcome back. I'm Jemima Birkus, your host for the Evening Review this evening. Now, the tourism sector is the third biggest contributor to our economy, and it is also the sector that has been most heavily affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. We are speaking to Mr. Digu, the CEO of the Namibia Tourism Board. He will speak to us about the challenges they have faced and how they are going forward.
Strike it gold and win 5,000 Namibian dollars in cash with Neo Paints. Simply buy Neo Paints products from the selected range and stand a chance to get one of 12 mystery buckets filled with gold paint. All 12 winners will each get 3 extra paint buckets equal to their purchase. One to replace the gold paint, the second to use on your project, and the third to give to a charity of their choice. One winner can score another 10,000 Namibian dollars by showing us your creative use of the golden paint. The best project wins the cash. Offer is valid from 27 September to 18 December at your favorite hardware store nationwide. Visit us at neopaints.com for more competition details and follow us on Facebook for weekly competition updates. Neo Paints, a coat of excellence.
Thank you for joining us, Mr. Naobeb.
Yes, good evening, and I'm happy to be here.
Yes, it's a pleasure indeed. Now, Mr. Naobeb, it has been reported that NTB cash reserves were depleted in recent weeks. What is the current state of NTB?
Yes, basically, as a business, in the times of COVID, in fact, we are required to do what we call monthly cash flow projections as part of the going concern, and that is in fact a requirement by the Public Auditors and Accounting Board that all those entities who are operating in industries that have been heavily affected by COVID needs to do that. So we've been doing that, and in fact when we did the budget of this financial year, current financial year that runs from April 2021 to March 2022, we had already soundboarded with our line ministry that definitely will be having a deficit budget, considering that the 90% of our income is almost from levies, which has actually been significantly reduced or had taken a knock because of COVID, because of the travel restrictions throughout globally. So that has already been cited with the line ministry when we did the budget, because we have to submit the budget to them and with the Minister of Public Enterprises. So as we are reviewing it, because government only gave us 3.1 million for the current financial year, so the rest of the budget of about 25 million, we were supposed to provide that income, but of course if we had levies, we would have. So therefore it was just prudent that we have to soundboard with the line ministry to get the projections, to get the additional funding. So our projections are currently, as things stands, that we will have cash flow situation as far as the November is concerned, and we've been engaging our mother ministry and Minister of Finance and Minister of Public Enterprises to see within the government's additional budget whether we can get some funds.
I understood that there was some news that you may in fact receive some funding. Can you share with us about that?
Yes, in fact we got the confirmation by letter last week Friday that the government is now going to provide for us additional 8 million on top of the 3.1 million that they gave us as the part of the financial year. So definitely we will be then afloat till March next year, when our financial year would be ending. And currently we are now busy planning for the next financial year, which is April 2022 to March 2023. And of course government has to again, when we present, also look at our financial situation and see how much the government can fund, because government is the main shareholder in this event, and therefore it's just prudent from corporate governance that wherever companies are in dire distress, that the shareholder would have to step in.
Yes. Now, for us to get a picture of just how the tourism industry has been impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic, please share with us what the income of levies were in the last few years.
Yeah, basically, let me just share with you for the last 2 years. So 2019, that was the year before COVID, which, because our financial year runs from April to March, so that means up to March 2020, we then generated, in terms of levies, about 45 million Namibian dollars, which is basically, as I said, and government contributed only 3 million at that time. So that's why we are saying levies actually contributes about 95% of our levy income. However, last year, the year that we had the COVID actually fresh, we only made about 8 million Namibian dollars. So you would see that discrepancy between 45 a year before and 8 million the year after when the COVID was. So that is how drastic and dramatic the impact of the COVID is.
Now, another issue that has really eaten into the income from the tourism sector is the fact that Namibia has been listed on the UK's red list, the United Kingdom's red list. Please talk to us about how that has impacted us, how that has affected our tour operators, and now that we've been taken off, how things are likely to change.
Yeah, basically, to tell you the truth, our main source markets, international ones, are Germany, or German-speaking Europe, which is Germany, Switzerland, Austria, and Luxembourg, and then, of course, UK, France, Italy, and United States, in some respects also China. So if you look at the global event, in fact, in USA, we are listed as amongst the 80 countries by the Center of Disease Control in US. So we still have that problem with the US. And in fact, in terms of US market, it was more important for our hunting sector. So because a lot of trophy hunters were coming from USA, and as you can see, a lot of hunting operations and outfitters in Namibia have been severely impacted because of those travel restrictions from the United States. These hunters could not come, and therefore the hunting sector is very much depressed. Then we had the issue of Germany, because I think only about 3 months ago, where we then delisted as a Delta variant destination, which actually put us in a very wrong footing, meaning that people could easily be infected, even though we are a vast country with a very small size of population. But however, that kind of a negative information had an impact. But of course, when that was now lifted, we then are seeing more Germans traveling to Namibia, especially with the Euro Discovery Wing that has been launched recently. So Germans have started coming in terms of international tourists. Then there's the other market was now the UK. Because of those travel restrictions, us being listed as on the red list made it very difficult, because when you are returning from Namibia to UK, you had to quarantine at your own cost, and that was a lot of issues. So definitely it was in fact negatively impacting the UK residents traveling to Namibia, because you needed to have more days on your holiday for you to quarantine for 10 days, and then you had to also have days to travel to Namibia. So therefore, people were not really eager. But now that we are lifted, I had a quick survey with a couple of tour operators, and they are saying no, they have now started receiving short-term bookings now from the UK. So, but I guess the issue in the long run is the airlift, because you only have the Eurowings flying from Frankfurt into Namibia for 4 times a week, and then you have the Ethiopian Airlines flying also 3 times a week via Addis Ababa. But now, if the British are traveling, predominantly they were traveling to Johannesburg and connecting from Johannesburg onto Namibia. But now you only have South African Airlines flying between Joburg and Windhoek, which is 1 flight almost a day. And then they are flying with a small aircraft. Now that in fact South Africa Airways, after Business Rescue has started operating regionally, they did not include Namibia as part of their regional routes. They are saying they would also consider us maybe at the second leg, which is probably sometime in December. So you still have the airlift restriction as much as the UK has delisted us. So as much as people are aspiring to travel to Namibia, the way of getting to Namibia is still a stumbling block.
How big a stumbling block is it, do you think, or does it look like?
Well, it's early days to say now that because it's only about a week ago that the lifting has been done. So we're not having any sense as to the number of people who are interested in traveling and where the bottlenecks are in the distribution chain. So that is early days. But again, it's something that we are foreseeing. So we've been having talks with the airports company because they are still engaging a number of airlines to try and fly to Namibia. So, but of course we don't have the details and how soon that will happen.
Now in June we hosted the United Nations World Tourism Brand Africa Conference to attract obviously more investment. And what have we seen anything, how has it paid off?
Yeah, basically most of it was not more for the investment purposes, it's more for creating awareness as Namibia to be on the top of the mind of the would-be travelers, considering to showcase how do we manage the COVID within Namibia in terms of our accommodation establishments, because we have a safety and health protocols that they are actually following. Although some of them are not, but in fact to just make sure that the health and the safety of the people are taken care of. So that was again that premises. However, out of that, what has come out is that the UNWTO is supporting Namibia through the Office of the President to do nation branding, of which I'm also a member on their task force. So the outcome is again, what it is that we have a polarized type of approach in how we do things in Namibia. If we do the tourism events, we have a different approach and different branding. So if the former investment center, now Namibia Investment and Promotion Board, Development Board, they do investment, but of course probably their branding and approach is different. And then when the government also has their own conferences, that branding is different approach. So we are looking at how can we synchronize this so that we just have one umbrella brand. So that in fact branding, creating brand and awareness is a costly exercise. So if we all of them are singing the same song and having a same brand identity, which we are looking forward, I guess it will go a long way. Like for example, South Africa, you will see with government as well as its agencies, they are more using their flag colors, and it's just that the taglines are different to speak to the different segments of which, whether it's tourism, whether it's mining, and so forth. So something like that would be very appreciative.
Now, Mr. Naobeb, earlier this year, you've also brought African influencers and artists to Namibia for a tour. To market Namibia as a destination for African countries. How is that paying off?
Well, that is had a huge impact in the Nigerian, because I think the whole essence was, as part of our strategic plan, we are looking at entering new markets as well. And so in Africa, Nigeria and Ghana are some of the countries, and Kenya are some of the countries we have identified to see how we can lure those travelers into Namibia, because they mostly travel to South Africa. So we can see how we can tap in. However, so far, we have not really seen any airlift in terms of passengers traveling to Namibia. And the thing is that as much as you are a tourism organization that does the marketing, the whole value chain is the operators on the ground in Namibia needs to link to the operators in Nigeria in order to put up packages and sell that, because we can only do as much as the awareness of the general destination. However, to do the sales in part of it would be the tour operators working with the tour operators, but these tour operators must also work with the accommodation establishments to see whether they can have a fairer pricing for this type of markets for them to put out the packages. And I think that is where we currently have a dilemma.
Speaking about fairer pricing, during the COVID pandemic, it has always been an issue, but especially during the pandemic, it has, locals have complained about the prices of local establishments, which is not friendly to local to local Namibians who really can't pay the prices that Western tourists are paying. So are you looking at marketing some, more friendly pricing for locals?
Well, Jemina, in essence, Namibia is based on a free economy policy. And therefore, to a large extent, when tourism was good, most of the businesses in Namibia had an outward look in terms of the euro and British pound and US dollars. So they could be pricing at that level, and they didn't have much of a appreciation, let me put it that way, with the lack of the local market. So it has been difficult, although we want to travel. So in fact, possibly, even though it's a bad thing in terms of the impact that it has in the businesses, it has another connotation that we have started waking up to say the local market, we need to also look at it. And I hope in the long run that will be the case. However, we cannot dictate pricing in terms of a tourism board. Neither the government can dictate and put a fair pricing policy because of the nature that our economy operates in, the free economy. However, when we just recently launched the domestic tourism campaign, we had then discussed with those who are willing to take up that offer, to offer special discounted rates for the locals, and also some did for the SADC region as well. And that was the starter. So we hope in the long run, even though it is discounted, still people feel that the pricing is still not within their reach because predominantly as Namibians, we do travel as families. And if you are not traveling as families, sometimes friends. So it's probably more than 2 people. So therefore your cost per person is and then what we are also looking at it is because there are trends globally that now people are no longer charging per person per night, which is what we are still doing in Namibia. But you can have a room, let's say in Europe, one price, either single or double. So they selling it per unit instead of per person per sharing, because that becomes a more costly affair. So we're looking at, as a tourism board, how can we bring in expertise to create awareness within the tourism sector? How do we move with the times so that we could then gradually follow the world trend globally in terms of pricing and yield management?
Now, in conclusion, you've said a number of things that you have been doing, including reaching out to your line ministry for cash injections. But are you working on any projects right now that to attract and raise more awareness?
Basically, we are working on what we call a global digital marketing campaign with our UK representative agency. So we are now in the process of finalizing the video and then, of course, packaging it around online digital solutions that will come with it. But we will do a prototype for Namibia as well as for UK market, now that the UK market has actually opened up. And then hopefully next financial year, when we have more funds, we'll then branch it out globally, because there is a cost involved in terms of the penetration that you want to reach, in terms of the national geographies and all those type of programs that we would be engaging in with this part of this campaign as well.
Now, thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Naobeb.
All right, thanks.
Thank you for joining us. Good night.